Bom dia, buenos dias, good morning. I apologize for giving this talk in English. I wish I could do it in Portuguese, but that's the way things go here. I have a rather strange job in this industry, perhaps the strangest of all. In fact, my children believe that I am some kind of spy. They think I work for the CIA or something. Yeah. And this started about a year and a half ago. I was in China. I was giving a talk there, and I called home one day, and my wife said to me, "You should hear the conversation that our daughter is having with her friends." I said, "What is that?" She said they are sitting in the garden and they are trying to figure out what kind of spy you are. I had no idea what she was talking about. And she said, "Listen to what they believe. Here is what they know. Number one, no one, including you, can explain what you do for a living. Number two, you are always going to places that no one can find on a map. Number three, you speak many different languages. I lived in Spain for many, many years. I've lived all over the world, and I studied languages in university, so I speak a lot of languages. Number four, you always have foreign money in your pocket, because I'm too stupid to remember to give it back before I leave the country. And number four, and perhaps most important, your mobile number is 238-1007. Okay. The reason I tell you this story is because I work in this industry in many different countries, with many different kinds of companies. Since January, I have been in 41 countries, working with manufacturers and service providers and regulatory agencies. I've done a lot of work with component companies and venture capital firms. And the point is that I tend to look at this industry from many different perspectives. And I am here to tell you this. It's a good time to be in the telecommunications industry again. For about 3 years, when people asked us what we did, we didn't say very much. Where do you work? Well, I work in... It's sort of embarrassing. Last week, I was at one of the industry's major trade shows. I was at Supercom in Chicago giving a talk, and I'm happy to tell you that there is once again energy in this industry. There is money being spent, there is excitement, there is a reason for being in the telecommunications industry. One of the reasons is convergence. Now, this is not the first time we've had convergence. The first real telecommunications convergence phenomenon started in 1997 or 1998, and we first began to see the possibilities that the IP protocol and all of the things associated with it could do for us. And then the bubble collapsed. The industry disappeared, convergence disappeared, and we didn't see it again until about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, when things started to get better. And now, the good news is that convergence is back. It has tremendous power behind it. And we are now in a place where we are starting to see that convergence is going to give us a lot of money. It is going to create revenue and earnings in this industry. But I am here to tell you right now, if convergence is to succeed, we have to change the way we do business. This industry is going through a tremendous change right now, and change is good, but it's often painful. So let me tell you why I believe convergence is so critically important. Number one, understand what convergence means. Many companies believe that this is convergence. I have voice, and I have video, and I have data. If you buy two, I'll give you a 10% discount. If you buy all three, I'll give you a 15% discount. Sorry, that's not convergence. Convergence means I have voice, and I have video, and I have data. And I'm going to deliver these to you in a powerful and compelling way that creates a brand new type of application that is so powerful and so compelling that it's going to change the way you live and the way you work. And you're going to pay a very high price for it, and you're going to like it. Right? That's what convergence means. So let me look at some slides now and give you an idea of some of the things that are happening right now in the industry. We need to recognize that one of the areas that needs help is the area of leadership. Now, what I mean is that the customers right now are looking for guidance. They're looking for vision. They're looking for leaders in this industry. You can see my definition of leadership. It is an art. It is an art in which you create a vision of the future that is so powerful and so exciting and so compelling that people will gather behind you to help you make it happen. That is what leadership is all about, and that is what you need to provide. It's not about technology. It's not about protocols. It's about being business leaders and giving the customers something to follow. Okay? Very, very important today. It is also important that you pay attention to all of the different market sectors in the industry. Not just IP, not just convergence, not just broadband. You must also pay attention to the component companies, to the activities of regulatory agencies, to the marketplace itself. Not only your own customers, but their customers. What are they doing, and why are they doing it? It is very, very important to do this, because if you don't, you might find yourself in a business that you perhaps don't want to be doing. Our friends, poor Alcatel, although perhaps it's a better business to be in, I don't know. What is required here is vision. Now, there are companies that do have vision. There are companies that have had vision from day one. For example, some of you may recognize these people. The lower left-hand, no, I guess the lower right-hand corner, of course, is Bill Gates. The lower corner on the other side is Paul Allen. And the man just above him with the glasses is Steve Ballmer, the current president of Microsoft. You are looking at the entire corporation in 1978. Now, I show you this because I want you to know how important vision is. Do you see the woman that is standing immediately to Bill Gates' left? in the front row, that woman worked 4 hours a week. A week, 4 hours. Her job was to make copies, answer the telephone, get lunch, whatever. She was a graduate student at the time, working 4 hours. Today, she is worth $1.3 billion. There is hope for all of us. Let's talk about convergence a little bit. I always like to start with a positive message. This seems like a good one. The service provider is dead in its current form. The reason the service provider is dead is because we need to redefine what the word service means. We don't really know. Service used to mean dial tone. It used to mean access and transport. No longer. Today, the customers are looking for something much richer, much better, something that will give them more, but cost them less. And as a result, the manufacturers and the regulators and the service providers are trying to redefine who they are and what they do. For example, we recognize that today's network is made up of many, many different types of technology. We have Ethernet, we have ATM, we have frame relay, we have the IP network, we have the traditional circuit switched network. The challenge that faces us is to recognize that all of those technologies exist, are used, and are not going away. Our challenge is to make them work together seamlessly, because that is what the customers are looking for. We know that there is an ongoing battle between the wireline and the wireless sides of the business. It is time for the service providers to recognize that wireless and wireline are not competing services. They're just access technologies, and that the customer should have the access technology that best meets their requirements. Now, this is going to require some significant changes. One of the biggest changes, which we will talk about in a moment, is broadband. We must move toward a universal broadband world. We know that technologies like Wi-Fi have become critically important today, but more important in the home than in the enterprise because of security problems. Wi-Fi is a very good technology, but it does have its limitations and it does have its security problems. Perhaps more important from a broadband point of view is a technology like WiMAX, whereas Wi-Fi will give you roughly 11 megabits per second of access over a distance of about 100 meters. WiMAX, the newest addition to the family, will give you 100 megabits per second over a service radius of 50 kilometers. Now, you want to see a wireless local loop technology, a broadband wireless local loop technology that actually works. This is the technology that you want to pay attention to. It is being deployed today. I've been involved in a number of trials that are using this technology, and it is extraordinarily successful. Watch it very closely. So the question then becomes, what is the service? See, I maintain that the service providers of the world need to learn to be service providers. They need to identify what the service is. And we're going to talk more about that in a moment. And over the next couple of days, You're going to hear from many different speakers who are going to look at these issues and try to help you understand where we are going as an industry. But I pose this question to you. What is the service? Think about that for the next 2 days. We talk a lot about the famous killer application, that new application that's going to arrive that is going to completely redefine everything that we do. Well, I don't want to disappoint you, but there isn't one. We have all the applications we need. I suppose if we can figure out a way to teleport me from my home in the States to Comandatuba, that would be a nice thing. But we don't have that yet. There's not enough bandwidth. Ultimately, we will get it, but not yet. There is no new killer application. What there is, and what is demanded, is a killer way, a great way, a new way to access the existing applications. Okay? Customers want mobility. They want ubiquity. They want universality. They want instantaneous access to their data. But the applications they want are the same applications they have always wanted. They want voice, and they want data, meaning web access or email, and perhaps they want a little bit of video. That's all. That's it. But they want it everywhere. They want it on their terms, not the service provider's terms. So one of the key challenges as you answer the question of what is the service is also the question, where is the service? So I say to you, there is no killer app. But then I would ask, well, maybe there is. Because, for example, perhaps the killer app is our old friend, Voice. Voice was the killer application. Voice is the killer application. And Voice always will be the killer application. It's where the money is. The key issue here is, how do we deliver it? How do we make money with Voice? What is the ultimate access device that we will use for Voice? Is it a mobile phone? Is it a PDA? Is it a laptop computer? Or is it some combination of all of those? That's the fundamental question. You see, I maintain that there is a migration happening. The migration is happening in some very interesting ways. You see, when convergence happens, divergence happens. As the services converge, the network diverges. All of the functions, all of the capability, all of the value is moving from the core of the network to the edge of the network. And it is happening for one very simple reason. The closer you put the service delivery mechanism to the customer, the better you can serve the customer. There is a tremendous amount of interest in what we call the multi-service edge, the multi-service provisioning platform, the single device that allows me to deliver any service the customer wants from one box. There's tremendous value in that. There's also tremendous value in recognizing that from the customer's perspective, there really are only two things we have to learn. All right? Now, I'm going to teach you a couple of technical terms. These are very important technical terms. You must learn them. You must memorize them. you must use them. Okay? You see the two arrows. The arrow that is on the left is called the para adentro. The one on the right is called the para fora. The role of technology is to make sure that the para fora matches the para adentro. As long as they are the same, the technology has done its work. That is the only thing the customer cares about. It doesn't matter what happens inside the network. It's not the customer's problem. Okay? You see, I have this strange feeling, whoops, sorry, go back. I have this strange feeling that if you read the newspapers and you read the technology magazines, you will come to the conclusion that we are going to declare a national holiday because we are converting to IP. That is the silliest thing I have ever heard in my life. My dog can explain to you how voice over IP works. Okay? I mean, that's how common it is. Everybody knows about voice over IP. But how many people outside of this industry can explain to you what circuit switching is? Why is voice over IP so sexy? Don't you find that just a little bit strange? I find that very, very strange. Who cares how the voice arrives? It either arrives in a stream of packets or it arrives as a steady stream of information. It's the same thing. And yet, we have allowed the technology to escape from the network, and it's now running around all over, making the customers nervous. And that's a bad thing, because the truth is that the migration to IP really doesn't matter. You see, if you read all of the news about the IP conversion, you would conclude that we are going to reach a day when we're going to celebrate. The governor will cut the cable that converts us over to IP, and everybody will cheer, and there will be fireworks, and we'll have a picnic. I don't think so. I think what's going to happen is that in the middle of the night, no moon, the technicians will sneak into the central office, and they will convert the network to IP. And the next morning, everyone will wake up, and they will make telephone calls, and they will dial into the internet, and they will make their little video conferences, and they'll do everything they've always done, and they won't know it happened, because it doesn't matter to anyone but us. That's the important message here. We need to stop burdening the customer with the technology issues, because they don't care, right? Here's why they don't care. In 2003, 60% of all network traffic was IP traffic. That's a global number. And 15% of that was voice traffic. Now, that's not very much, but it's enough. 67% of all global operators have said that circuit-switched voice, traditional circuit-switched voice, will represent less than 5% of their total revenues by the end of 2006. Now, I submit to you that that is an area of some concern. Where is that money going to go? We'd like to keep it. The question is, how? How are we going to take advantage of these new technologies to make sure that the conversion to IP preserves the revenue base. The service providers need to understand that this is not a battle to keep access lines. It's not a battle to keep minutes of use. It is a battle to keep customers. That is the fundamental thing that these companies must do. And the way to keep them is through the proper deployment of the kinds of services that they are looking for, and I am specifically talking about converged, bundled services. We hear a lot in this industry about the famous triple play. The first triple play was in 1998 when convergence first happened and we began to think about what it could do for us. We talked about the convergence of technologies and companies and services. The convergence of technologies was the idea that everything could be moved to an all-IP network. That was exciting. Unfortunately, we weren't ready for it yet. We simply weren't ready. The company convergence means all of the companies in the 1990s that were buying each other. Microsoft bought 240 companies between 1998 and 2000. Cisco bought 80 companies. Lucent and Nortel and Fujitsu and Alcatel all made acquisitions. All of them. That was the company convergence. The most important part, and unfortunately the part that got the least attention, was the services convergence. The idea behind services convergence was, how can we deliver all of these services to one device with quality of service? That was elusive. We weren't able to do it. Now we can. Convergence is back, and it's actually happening. Today, the triple play is voice and video and data converged and delivered over one single network infrastructure. But let me show you the real triple play. The triple play that the customers are really looking for. And when I say customers, I mean not only residence customers, they're clearly important, but also the enterprise customers, the banks, the schools, the large businesses, the educational institutions, and so on. Here is the real triple play. We want to sell them new technology. We want to move into the IP world. We recognize how important it is. The customers are asking very simple questions. If I buy this technology, will it raise my revenues? If I buy this technology, will it reduce my costs? And finally, if I buy this technology, will it improve my competitive position? You see, if we can make the argument that the move to IP, the convergence world, causes those three things to happen, the customers will pay attention. This is what they're looking for. Unfortunately, our industry has a legacy, a history of selling based on the merits of technology, not based on the business demand. One of the big changes we need to make is to recognize how important it is to present the argument on the customer's terms. And the customer's terms are triple play number 3. That is fundamental to the success of convergence. That's the promise. Now, as we wind to a close here, we have to recognize that convergence comes in many different forms. We have business convergence. Business convergence simply means that we need to make sure that the technologies that we deploy facilitate business success, that the technologies are in alignment with the goals of the customers that we are selling to. IT convergence says we need to deploy technologies so that the total cost of ownership of infrastructure is reduced, that the maximum value is taken from that infrastructure. Network convergence simply recognizes that there are many different technologies involved in the businesses that we serve, and that we have to recognize that fact, that we have to accept the fact that wireless and wireline and Ethernet and legacy technologies like ATM and frame relay and private line are still part of the success of corporations. We have to accept that. Communications convergence simply says that as the IP world becomes more and more successful, we need to integrate it carefully into the customer base and make sure that they get the maximum value from it. And finally, capability convergence, which is really the most important thing, simply says we need to make sure that as we convert to this new technology base, that customers and ourselves enjoy productivity gains, that we improve customer relationships, that flexibility and response time become better, that all of the functions that technology should cause do indeed happen. Because if that doesn't take place, we have failed. We don't deploy technology for the sake of deploying technology. We deploy it because it makes a difference for the customer. Right? One of the other major areas that we need to pay very close attention to is the fact that the line between IT and telecom is disappearing. Those two industries are becoming one. As storage area networking, that is, the placement of databases throughout the network, has been successful, it becomes very difficult to tell where the network ends and the data center begins. They have become one. Similarly, the whole idea of grid or utility computing has changed the way we think about IT and telecom. I simply want you to be aware of the fact that your world is growing. It is growing to include IT in a very substantial way. This is presenting some enormous opportunities for you because the customers are also recognizing the fact that this is happening. As voice over IP becomes a reality in the corporation, keep in mind that we now have to sell the idea to the IT department, not to the telephone people. So we have to accept the fact that this change is real, that it's happening right now, and that it presents an opportunity for you to serve as consultants, as architects, as designers for this changed environment that we see in the marketplace. Okay? And now to our favorite subject, regulation. Regulation is one of those areas that we try to ignore, but it's rather important. Keep in mind that the goal of regulation, the intent of regulation, is not to create competition. That's not why we have it. The goal of competition, the goal of regulation, is to change the experience that the user has when they engage with the technology. When customers, whether they are enterprise customers or residence customers, use the technology that we deploy, we want them to have the best possible experience. Regulators want precisely that. Now, they may use competition as a way to achieve it. We watched very fascinating what happened when Embratel was broken up, with the creation of the mirror companies, with the division of the various sections of the company. Right? We're not going to debate whether or not it was successful. We have the same issues in the States, the same issues in the UK, the same issues in Canada and Australia and Spain. But the point is that the customers need to have an experience with the technology that works for them, that generates revenue for them, that helps them achieve their business goals, and that is the reason that regulation exists. We need to accept the fact that the most successful culture is a culture of compliance, a recognition of the fact that regulation is here to stay, it's necessary, it's important, and if we comply with it and take part in its creation, we can make it part of our success. Okay? We also have to recognize that there's a family of companies out there that I call disruptors. These are the companies that are changing who we are and what we do. These are companies that are not really part of our industry, but they want to be. For example, we have this one. Here is our friend Bill once again, lying on the couch, thinking up ideas. Microsoft is one of the most powerful, competitive threats that we face today as an industry. Microsoft has made it very clear they don't want to play in the network. They want to play on both ends of the network. They want to dominate the computer world, the server world, the set-top box world for the switching environment, and the wireless world. They want to be the content players. They want to form alliances with network companies. This is an enormous opportunity. Microsoft can be your best friend, or they can be your worst enemy. You get to decide. They have a long history of getting what they want. Watch this company very, very closely. Another one is IBM. IBM has reinvented itself in the last 10 years. I don't really know what business they're in anymore. I'm not sure they do. But the point is, they have a very powerful story to tell. They are forming alliances with some very, very interesting companies. It's fascinating to me that for the last few months there have been a lot of IBM executives hanging around at the Microsoft headquarters up in Redmond, Washington. I don't know about you, but that makes me nervous. Right? Something's happening there that we need to pay attention to. Watch IBM closely. And here's the last one that I'm going to mention. You probably recognize both of these people. I put them up here because they represent the generation of people that are about to become your biggest customers and your employees and possibly your competitors. This is the generation of kids that are known around the world as the millennials. These are the kids who were born between 1982 and 2004. They are a powerful and very important force in this industry. On average, globally, they spend about $110 a week on technology-based products. That's each one. And they influence over 90% of all purchases in the home. And in the next few years, they are going to be coming into your business with a very, very different culture, a very different set of values, and a very different way of looking at the world. And they are going to be making decisions about what you do. Keep in mind, this is the first the first generation born into a world that has always had the web. It is the first generation born into a world that has always had mobile telephony. It's the first generation that is watching less television than any generation before. They are changing what we do. Their expectations are powerful, and you need to pay close attention to them. If you're interested in that particular sector, I have a lot of information about them. I'm delighted to email it to you. So, what are our truths? Number one, we know that the role of the service provider needs to change. It's got to change. Number two, we know that these service providers need to become, well, service providers. There's the challenge. How do we recognize what that is? We recognize that the only real killer application is voice, right? But we also recognize that while IP itself doesn't really matter, what does matter is the triple play, the bundled set of services that we are trying to deploy because it is what the customers want and because it makes the customers sticky. It makes them stay with their service provider. It reduces what we call churn. Right? We know that the core-to-edge migration is accelerating and accelerating very, very rapidly, and that is changing the architecture of the network, and it is changing the point of delivery of services. We know that the goal of regulation is perhaps different than what we thought. We know that IT and telecom are presenting a whole new form of innovation, and by the way, opportunity for you. And finally, I say that you must watch the disruptors. And convergence? Well, very interesting. It provides the interface, the touch point between the three major services that we talk about, voice and video and data. It facilitates the transmission of voice and data and video with quality of service over a single network infrastructure. It energizes broadband. Look at this number. This number is the region of the Americas, North and South America. If we deploy universal broadband throughout the region, here are the numbers. Universal broadband will generate $9 billion of additional revenue into the regional economy every year for the next 10 years, and will add over 3 billion work hours. Broadband is not an option. It is something we must deploy. It has a tremendous impact on the industry, tremendous impact on the societies and the cultures and businesses that we serve, and we must take it seriously. If you look at the value of the market, the communication market alone will exceed $400 billion by the end of next year, and the regional convergence market, again, the Americas, will reach approximately $73 to $75 billion. That's up from $17 billion 4 years ago. That is a substantial growth pattern. So with that, I want to leave you for the rest of the conference. I will be here for the duration, and I encourage you to ask questions, talk to me. I will be in the Itelogy Partners meeting room right around the corner here if you need to reach me. But again, I thank you very, very much. Please pay attention to the messages that you're about to hear from the other speakers here. I think you're going to have a very, very good conference. Thank you very, very much.